Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الحمد لله. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. الحمد لله. Dear brothers and sisters, we always begin praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He deserves to be praised. We seek His help, we seek His aid, we seek forgiveness and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the evil of our own actions and deeds. He whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides, there can be no one to lead him astray. And he whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows to go astray, there can be no guide for him. I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship, no God worthy of worship, except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has no partners. And I bear witness that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the slave and messenger. Ameen. Alhamdulillah. We always should be excited, in a good mood, a joyous occasion on Yawmul Jumu'ah. Yawmul Jumu'ah is a very special occasion for us. And during Yawmul Jumu'ah, we are to receive the dhikr, the admonition, the reminder from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and carry this reminder from this Yawmul Jumu'ah to the next Yawmul Jumu'ah. And also, we're reminded always to recite Surah Al-Kahf, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give us nur, He can shed nur, He can give us light, which lasts from Yawmul Jumu'ah to the next Yawmul Jumu'ah. And this is a protection for us. It's a consciousness for us, so we can see things that others cannot see. Alhamdulillah. The topic we have prepared today is somewhat of a solution or a way, a method in which we are to move the Jumu'ah forward, organized and together. But know indeed that we all have an individual role to play in a collective movement of moving the Jumu'ah forward. This is a very big and dear topic, and very important topic, and one that everyone should look to himself or herself and ask, what is my role? How can I help? We should want to be a part of a collective body and a strong body, a strong group. So the reminder is a very short and sweet verse in Surah Al-Ankabut, verse 45. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He reminds us, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَلَذِكْرُ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ. Very short, very sweet, but very powerful. Very powerful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He reminds us that the greatest thing in life, the greatest thing in the world is the dhikr of Allah, is the remembrance of Allah. It's the remembrance of Allah. So this remembrance, this dhikr, this is actually a duty. This is a duty upon all of us. We owe this dhikr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes we hear the dhikr, the reminder, and we may get this vague idea or understanding what this dhikr is. But very Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says it's the dhikr that He protects. So we all have an individual role. We all have an individual role of upholding this dhikr. So we all have to ask ourselves, concerning the dhikr of Allah, am I doing my part? Am I playing my role? Am I helping the collective movement, the Jumu'ah? Am I helping? Am I being a part? What am I doing? So we know every last one of us, we had to take kalima shahada to be Muslim. We made a declaration. We all made this declaration. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. We all made this declaration. But how many times do we go back and revisit the shahada that we took, the declaration that we made? And what are we saying? We bear witnessing that there is no God worthy of being worshipped except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Muhammad. And we bear witness that Muhammad is the slave and messenger. We shouldn't take this declaration light, and we should revisit this declaration. Why? Because we will certainly be tried and tested in what we say. So it's very important, dear brothers and sisters, for us not to take the dhikr of Allah lightly. We have plenty duties concerning an individual role. And these by far are the dearest. In a hadith related by Abu ad-Darda, he narrates that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, shall I inform you of the best of your actions? Shall I inform you of the best of your actions? The purest in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That which raises your rank the highest with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That which is better than spending money, than spending gold and silver. And that which is better than meeting your enemy on a battlefield. So the companion said, yes, please inform us. Please inform us. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he then said, verily it's the dhikr of Allah. So here from this hadith, we see the importance, and we also have something to gauge what is this dhikr. This dhikr is those 5 things that the Prophet ﷺ described in this hadith. And the first one he said, this is the best of your actions. The best of all of your actions that you do throughout your life is the dhikr of Allah. This is the best of your actions. And it's the purest in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The purest in the sight of Allah. And he says it's the thing that will raise your ranks, the highest with Allah. It's the dhikr. And also he said it's something that's better than something we love to do. We like to acquire money and spend it. Verily, he says the dhikr is better than spending the gold and the silver. And then lastly, he says that even your desire to be taken shaheed, to go into the battlefield, to meet your enemy, to swing at your enemy and have them swing back at you in battle, jihad, he said the dhikr is greater than this. Subhanallah. So dear brothers and sisters, in moving the Jumu'ah forward and the collective body of believers, we all have this individual role. We all have this individual role. And the solution is to make hijrah. It's to make hijrah. What are we making hijrah from? What are the things that stops us from this dhikr? What are the things that stops us? Many distractions in the world. Many things. We have a complete system that was already set up, that we were born into, that's already in place, that we all follow. And this is the thing that we need to make hijrah from. We need to make hijrah to the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This remembrance of Allah. And the most dearest of acts of this dhikr are the 5 obligatory duties that were already given. Very important. Very important. And a lot of times, overlooked. Overlooked. We need to ask ourselves, what is our participation? What is our participation in a particular Jumu'ah? What Jumu'ah do we belong to? What group, what body do we belong to? And how am I participating? How can I make it better? What else is it that we can do? What is it that we need? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He reminds us in another verse, in Surah Al-Najm, the stars, I believe it's verse 29. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فأعرض عمن تولى عن ذكرنا ولم يرد إلا الحياة الدنيا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's reminding us in such short, beautiful, brief verses of His dhikr and the importance of the dhikr. So He says in this verse that we should shun all of those groups, all of those people, all of those systems, all of those governments which turn away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And verily, that which we were born into, the system that we were born into, the system that we follow, They are the ones who turn away from Allah's dhikr. They turn away from Allah's remembrance. They legislate laws. They legislate codes that turn away from the dhikr. They remove the remembrance, the dhikr of Allah from the schools that we send our children to. But we still send our children there. Very big problem. So we want to try in the second part to address some of these issues and give an example of how the Prophet ﷺ, how he took care of these problems. Very simply. وأقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, dear brothers and sisters, keeping in mind our role, our importance, our participation, our seriousness, keeping in mind that this is an obligation, this is a duty for us to establish the dhikr of Allah individually. And once we're serious about this mission of keeping the dhikr, then we can begin to tackle some of the things that has to be tackled. Some of the things that will allow us to move forward as a Jumu'ah, to move forward as a body, to truly love each other like we're supposed to love each other, to fill our masjids, to keep them open all day long for every salat. Verily, this is a heavy task, and it's very hard. Very hard. And the reason why it's difficult is because there's only a few people participating. You can go all over the city and you'll see many, many masajids all over. Sometimes they close. You might go for Dhuhr, Asr, closed, door locked, nobody around. Can't establish salat. Apparently this is a problem. A serious problem that we have to address. So, in addressing this problem, the Prophet ﷺ, and this is from the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, when the Prophet ﷺ, when he first migrated from Mecca to Medina, he had two groups with him. One were the people who came with him, who migrated with him. And the other was the ones that was already in Medina. They were the helpers and the immigrants. The very first thing that's very important that the Prophet ﷺ established was the masjid. He established the masjid. And this group that we're speaking of, the helpers and the immigrants, it was roughly 90 a number. 90 a number. That's not a big number. That's a small number. But we need to know the detail of how he established the masjid, how he established the mosque, what was in the mosque, what was the purpose of the mosque. And these are the details that we need to pay attention to. Because we have a project that we set out to accomplish. So I just want to share this insight so that we could reevaluate what our plans are. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he started with the small group, and the material that they used to build with, they didn't all run to Lowe's and Home Depot and buy brick. They didn't do all that. They didn't go buy wood. They didn't do none of this. Verily, they took from the land the things that were available. And for anyone they saying, you can even grow a crop that you can build with. It could be as soft as cotton and 10 times stronger than steel. A crop that we can grow, and it grows in every 50 state over here in the United States. So they took their material from the earth. He was gathering stones, leaves, rocks, and making dua the whole time. And his helpers and the immigrants was right there with him, helping out. They purchased a piece of land that was owned by 2 orphans. And this land was actually a site of the polytheists, those who worship more than one God, who worship several gods. This was their burial ground. And they staked out a piece of area that was 100 yards by 100 yards square. So for anybody who don't know what the 100 yards is, that's a football field. 2 of them put together. 100 by 100. Not 100 by 50 like the football field. So that's the size. That's the size of what they began to build. That's the size. With this little bit of men. 90. But they got the job done. And they done all the basic stuff they had to do. Dug up the graves. Leveled out the dirt. And then planted trees all around the perimeter of all the rocks and stones that they was mending together with the mud, the water. Making this paste and building. This was the very first thing. And then they made rooms. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his home was there. And you know another thing they done that every masjid down there in the city has? We have a problem with people coming to the masjid looking for a place to stay or lay their head and rest because they have no family and they have no home. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he carved out a space for all the people who didn't have a family and didn't have a home. So this was a method or a way to help those people better their lives. So how were they to better their lives? So what else was going on in this masjid? He said they established a place so that he can give them the Islamic principles and doctrines, so he could teach them. So we see that their school was established inside of the mosque. Inside of the mosque. The very next thing he done after establishing the mosque, you know the very next thing he worked on? The brotherhood. The brotherhood. And how do we think he got that job done? Big job. Very big job. The immigrants and the helpers had personal beefs. Very serious beefs. Conflicts. Trials. Even wanting to kill each other at times. So he worked on the brotherhood second. But you know what he done that was very unique. He actually drew up a contract. He drew up a contract of how the brothers are to deal with one another. And the third thing that he done was, after working on the brotherhood, he went outside of the masjid and he unified and made agreements and treaties with non-Muslims and Muslim tribes. So we should take a beautiful lesson from this little small information, but very powerful information. Why? Because these were the things, and these is only the first three things, because we don't have time to cover all of the things. But I wanted to point these out to show us the importance of moving our Jumu'ah forward. It begins with us coming together, willing to participate and help out, and then establishing the mosque, saying what is it that we need ahead of time before we go in. So, the last thing, and the one thing that I wanted to point out, when he said he established the relations and the treaties between the Muslims and the non-Muslims, that applies to us establishing relationships with the so-called city hall, so-called police officers, so-called politicians. And the key point that I wanted to point out, he didn't just follow what they said. He set all this up to be respected by them, not to follow their way, not to be in agreements with them all the time. No, but for them to respect whatever it is that we have established. And this is the same approach that we have to take moving forward. We have to take this role. So just to give a real life example, it may be an issue that we don't see eye to eye on. We don't see eye to eye on. So we would have to try and come to some type of median, some type of agreement that does not violate the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But here today you see them legislating. The biggest thing that they legislated is that a man can marry another man. And they made this legal. It's legal. And we still following everything that's legal, when we should be following law, what Allah sent us. But it's no compromise, brothers and sisters, no compromise. These are some of the issues that we have to collectively sit down on and speak of these issues. A whole picture. We always look at a small picture or a small portion and try to find a solution for a small picture, a small portion, when verily we have to look at the whole. We have to know the whole in order to understand a portion. So from this picture, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may He make it easy for us to see the whole picture. May He inspire us to go learn more of how He got things done. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to keep the dhikr. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. سبحان ربك. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا إنك جامع الناس ليوم لا ريب فيه إن الله لا يخلف الميعاد. ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وأسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى. سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا. قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. ربنا ولك الحمد. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله